Offbeat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one! Another one!
Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, welcome in, everybody. It is Thursday. Big day. Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition with me, as always. Looking forward to it's always a fun day when you hear my brother. Plenty to talk about. We get to talk about Pacers, college basketball, tons of college football, all kinds, a little bit of soccer. The Big Ten soccer tournament underway. Here's Indiana, as always, finds their way into the final in dramatic fashion with a golden goal over Northwestern to make it into the final. So there's another another championship attempt for the Indiana Hoosiers in the Big Ten. Mike Whitson surprised Tom Allen last night during the coach's show at Southern Stone Restaurant. We'll talk about that. A little bit. Let's talk about the Heisman race. We haven't talked about that at all, Dustin. Got a 105-year-old lady who ran a 100-yard dash. Can't wait to hear a little bit from that. Matt Taylor from the Colts will stop by and visit. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indianapolis Star, who talks to Indiana high school football as we are into the playoffs. This is a regional round weekend. Chris Denari from the Pacers. Talk a little bit of Pacers as well. So a little cornucopia of everything today, Dustin Schutte.
This is the time of year that it's we're never bored because you have all the stuff you just mentioned. You got high school stuff, you've got college basketball, college football, NFL, NBA, even NHL, which I watch none of. But there's so much going on. This is a great time of year. It's been great. I've been consuming a lot of college basketball during the weeknight.
Well, I guess you have, because on Tuesday there was 186 games, and anybody else that didn't play on Tuesday pretty much played on Wednesday. And for those just minuscule others that did not do that, or maybe they did, Buffalo took on Michigan last night. Didn't do too bad. They lose to the Big Ten favorites, I guess, preseason favorites, 88-76. And Florida State wins at home with a big number against Pennsylvania, 105-70. Only college action going last night, which is kind of weird after the 2 days prior to that being, 200 and plus games, however many there were. It was like overkill. I was like, man, why don't they spread this out a little bit? Tuesday, It was just like dumped everything. Boom. But there you go. It's off and running. College basketball is at it. Indiana back in action again Friday after their game on Tuesday night that they had. So more college basketball action coming to you on that night. I wonder how many games are – quite a few games scheduled for Friday. Yeah. Army, Duke, Kentucky's in action again. Ohio State's in action again. Virginia's in action again, who lost to Navy. Kansas is in action again. Alabama, Houston. So Auburn, Purdue, this is all on Friday I'm talking about. Illinois, North Carolina, Oregon, UCLA, and Villanova. Wow, big game there. Number 2, UCLA hosting number 4, Villanova Friday night. Late, 11:30, baby. You can have a big old run of college basketball for that starts at 7 o'clock on Friday and will run till about 2:30 in the morning. So that take care of your Friday night.
The single guy's dream is to load up that second television in the living room and not have to worry about anything else going on around you. Just watching basketball and football every day of the week. Because now you have weekday football. Maction has returned. Like, I think we have football, when you count the NFL, every day, all but one day in the month of November. It's fantastic.
And Forrest said there were numerous games last night. You know what? He's right. I may have not toggled the right. It may have been set. I hate when you pull up the scores on a like ESPN or Yahoo,
Yeah.
and they don't list all the games. It'll be just the top 10 or something, and I don't catch that, which is probably what just happened.
Probably.
So as I roll back to Wednesday, and let's change that to all Division I. You're right. Boom. You're right. Tons of games there. So thank you for straightening me out on that. I appreciate you. Florida State, like I already mentioned them, but Temple, let's see, I don't see anything good. Rutgers. Wow. Close one for Rutgers. 73-70 over Lehigh.
Yep.
Seton Hall in action. They blew Fairleigh Dickinson out. UCF. Wake Forest. They won. Trying to see if there's anything big.
Kennesaw State played well against Iowa State. That was exciting.
Kennesaw State. Only connection there is the IU president, former school.
Only connection for you. I live here.
I get that. Penn State was in action. They got a win over Youngstown State, 75-59. Texas A&M. Let's see if there's anybody else that jumps out at me. Not really, as I'm going through there. But yeah, there were tons of games there. So, I hate when I do that, catch that. But
how about Nebraska continuing its string of one possession losses in basketball? Did you catch that? They've lost.
Say that again.
They've lost 6 football games. 6 of their 7 losses have been by one possession. Their first game against Western Illinois, they lost by 1 point.
Who is this?
Nebraska.
Oh my! Really again?
I didn't see that game or how it ended, but I mean, like, that whole state needs church apparently to rectify like whatever sport gods they pissed off.
I'm just reading some of these comments that Tim mentioned that TJ Walker, who does a Kentucky show, was cracking on me this morning on his show that apparently we shared a cab and I asked to sign a check over to him. First of all, I've never shared a cab with him anywhere, so I don't know nothing about that. We used to do a show at the same station, but other than there being a Kentucky show and ours was not. That's probably the one school that I try to be as down the line a reporter as possible, but yeah, it's kind of hard to hide the bias against Kentucky. I'll have to acknowledge that, but I'm sure that was just some fun that was being had. But nope, no cab rides with me. Now I did share a cab ride with Bob Stoops once in Las Vegas. That was kind of odd. So I ran into him at the Big Ten football media days this year, and oddly because he was there in his capacity as the new analyst for Fox, but it was odd. Was leaving a hotel at like 5:30 in the morning and was with another friend, and I just turned around and said, man, because we were in the line for the airport, and I said, if you're going to the airport, dude, you can just jump in with us. And I didn't pay attention. He got in, and he gets in the back, and I'm in the front, and my friend's in the back, and he just starts quizzing the guy. And I'm like, dude, shut up. Nobody wants to talk at 5:30 in the morning. But he keeps asking him what he was doing out there, and he's, I was looking at a recruit, and what do you do? I'm a football coach. Oh, where are you? Coach, head coach at Oklahoma. And he goes, what's your name? And I just turned around and said, Bob Stoops. And I was like, wow. But I never would have known. You got glasses on, you got a hat on, like all this. It's 5:30 in the morning. It was just odd. It's just funny thing. But funny things in life, how you just run into people. But yeah, that was the only cab I've shared with somebody. But Bob Stoops now moved on to Fox, so he's going to have a fun run this fall as the college football Heisman. We haven't talked about the Heisman race much this year, but there hasn't been a lot of talk about. Is it me, or is there not as much Heisman hype being made this year?
There's not, because I don't.
Why is that?
It's weird, because this seems like the year when it's like you have the biggest controversy almost, because there's no clear-cut favorite. In 2019, it was Joe Burrow. 2018, there was some debate. And I mean, the guys from Oklahoma, Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, they kind of had those wrapped up. So it's weird that we have, like, you have 5 or 6 guys that could probably legitimately win it this year, and it's being talked about very little. you have two guys in Kenneth Walker at Michigan State and then C.J. Stroud at Ohio State that could snap the Big Ten's Heisman drought going back to 2006 with Troy Smith. Like it's kind of bizarre because you would think that the years when there's a clear-cut winner is when you would talk about it the least, but that's apparently not the case.
Yeah, it's kind of dawned on me. I'm like, normally you've got this overkill of Heisman hype, and I'm like, wow, there's just hasn't been that this year, and because of COVID last year, it may not have been there, but it may not have been as noticeable last year because not much was noticeable last year because everything was so sterilized. But this year, with things being back, I'm like, man, yeah, there's not that big hype out there. Who are the top guys? Which, for one thing, it's now based on they've already got them picked yearly before the season. They've got the 5 guys. They're going to be here. Well, they started coming out with guys like the North Carolina quarterback who I'm like, I was like, dude, that team, that's a fraudulent team. I said that last year, and not that he's fraudulent, but that doesn't make you a Heisman winner because you're on an overhyped team. And that happens too much. These guys get so much hype because they're on an overhyped team. That was one instance for me.
Yeah, well, and you look at Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma. He's another one. Everybody thought he was going to win it hands down, and look at what happened. I mean, he got benched. They brought in Caleb Williams. There's some people that say, because this is how wide open it is that people have considered Caleb Williams to be in the Heisman race, even though he didn't start until like game 6 or game 7, something like that. So we typically, when you have these preseason favorites, they are at least in contention. They're at least in the mix. But those are two guys that they haven't done anything. DJ, I can never pronounce his last name. DJU is what I'm going to call him from Clemson. He was another guy that people thought might just step in because of Trevor Lawrence and the success that he had, that he might just be able to take over and be in that conversation. And Clemson's offense is garbage. They can't move the ball. I don't, there's no clear, to me, it's Kenneth Walker and CJ Stroud and throw Bryce Young into the mix, but it changes week to week. There's no clear cut favorite. There's no guy who's had that like key Heisman moment. You could probably throw Travion Henderson from Ohio State in the mix too. He's been really good at running back there for the Buckeyes, but I mean, it's kind of bizarre to see this wide open of a race this late in the season.
And yeah, I mean, and it's up for grabs. And part of the reason, I guess, is because normally I've mentioned you usually have there's at least 3 teams that are clear-cut runaways at the top. And that 4 spot is always who's going to be that 4 spot? Is it going to be Oklahoma? Is it going to be, a Big Ten team? Is it going to be a team from the Pac-12? But we don't have those 3 teams. You've got Georgia, and then you've got some others. And I don't, not necessarily, and that's a little different. So, but we'll see how that goes. Man, we got tons to talk about. I think Matt Taylor is going to join us next, so we'll talk a little bit about the Colts. They got they've come off a win, but they've got a game coming up against a Jaguars team that's coming off a very, very, very improbable win over a division leading team with that big 9-6 score. But Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star to join us. We got some Indiana high school football action to talk about and see what's going on with that. Indiana signed 3 national letters of intent to the basketball team. We'll talk about that later on as well. Got Indiana basketball coming up tomorrow night. Indiana football coming up this weekend and plenty of other games. Lots more coming up. We'll get to it when we get back.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration or
I haven't heard from Matt, but if he doesn't show up, you should play the old woman video. I have heard from Kyle though, so he'll be here at 9:40.
We'll do it.
So the Colts are pretty much out of the playoff race.
Well, are they?
I mean,
If they win this game, they're 5-5.
Oh well, I guess everybody else is five, and the teams above them are 5-4, 5-4, 5 and yeah. Well, I guess they do have a shot. Literally everybody in the wild card race is 5-3, 5-4.
They're talking about an updated Hoosiers movie. What's that all about?
We already had the director on for that.
What did he say? Well, I don't remember what he said about
Or it might have been on the day you weren't here, and it was me and Charlie. But they're re-releasing Hoosiers with some deleted scenes.
Well, I had Angelo Pizzo on. He said that?
Well, the other guy, not Angelo Pizzo, but the guy who came on the week before.
From Hoosiers?
No, it wasn't somebody from Hoosiers, but somebody who works at that gym, I think. I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Oh, the director at the Hoosier gym.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
He's the one who told us about that. I don't remember when it might have already come out.
I did miss that. I think I did the first and last segment that day. That was like the first day after.
That was the first day of your neck problem.
Oh man, which is still bothering me.
I went back and rewatched the section of the show the other day where Dustin was cracking up because you made a noise going into break.
Yeah, what was that?
God.
I remember.
All right, Matt should be joining shortly. He just texted me.
Could not stop laughing.
Oh man, don't start me on it again.
All right, here we go.
TheHoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also catch Indiana Sports Beat Radio there each day at your convenience, or you can find it any place you podcast or on this station each weekday. If we're not on the station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It's Thursday here at the Indiana Sports Beat Radio. It's always a big day. Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition with me makes it twice as fun. And the man, Matt Taylor, the smooth-talking Matt Taylor, voice of the Indianapolis Colts. How are you, sir?
Smooth today. How we doing?
Awesome. Cannot complain. It's winters just keep staying away right now, so that's always a good thing.
I tell you what, it's playing havoc on my sinuses, though. My allergies are kicking my butt. I mean, it's 70 one day, then it's 30, then it's 40, then it's 75, and we're getting out the bikinis and the we're jumping in the pool again. I mean, it's killing my sinuses. I tell you, I mean, I can't get back on track. Really, the last month or so has been kicking my butt.
Yeah, and that's not great around here. This is one of those areas where the humidity kind of just hovers in the hills and hangs in there. But the Colts looking forward. You got a game this week that is a little bit more of a game than we kind of thought it was going to be. A very improbable win by the Jaguars last week. Big baseball score of 9-6, but a big win for them.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, defensively, that was something. I mean, that was really impressive what they did to the Buffalo Bills, who coming into that game, they had the number one scoring offense in the NFL, about 32 points per game. And they were held out of the end zone, got only a pair of field goals, 6 points. And Jacksonville just played lights out on defense. You know, they had 4 takeaways. They had 4 sacks, 8 more hits on Josh Allen. They just played like a completely different team for whatever reason. They just brought their A game last Sunday. And so, that's what this league is. Every team is to be reckoned with. They always say any given Sunday or Thursday night or Monday night or whatever the case is. It's totally true. I mean, if you take anything for granted in this league, a team like the Jets or the Jaguars or the Texans, man, they still have plenty of playmakers to beat you. and to upset you. So the Colts have to know that. I think they do, and they know how important this game. I mean, quite frankly, all of the games from here on out for the Colts are just so crucial. 8 games left, but you look at a 4-5 record, but it's really more than that. If you look at the AFC, it's such a jumbled, muddy mess, right? I mean, I looked at it the other day. There are 8 non-division leading teams that have either 4 or 5 wins. So most of the parity in the NFL is on the AFC ledger instead of the NFC. Now that's going to change, right? I mean, a lot of these AFC teams are going to knock each other out by playing each other in these head-to-head matchups. So it does give the Colts an opportunity here to, make up some ground. But that being said, you just can't afford to slip up against the Jaguars or the Texans. None of these division games the rest of the way the Colts can afford to lose. And quite frankly, they have 8 games left. I'm not sure they can afford to lose more than 1 or 2 of them, to be honest with you.
Well, they come off that just unbelievably heart-crushing loss to the Titans. Then they get what my good friend Todd Leary calls what I think was their get-right game against the Jets. The offense just kind of comes uncorked or loose, and they put 45 points on the board. Now you've got a Jaguars team, which they're at home, which hopefully that the Colts can get that win. And then you got to go on the road for a tough game up in Buffalo. But they're not out of the playoff picture. They're as tough of a season as it's been, and as hard as the start was. They're trying to hang around.
They are hanging around, and I think what gives you optimism going forward is that offensively, I think they can score and they can compete with just about anybody. I mean, what they are doing right now on offense is what they strive to be at the beginning of the season, but just couldn't get there because of time on task and injuries and COVID drama and things like that. Plus, the schedule was really, really tough at the beginning of the season. No excuses, but where the Colts are now is what they saw for themselves at the beginning of the season. I mean, they're scoring 34 points per game in the last month. That's number 1 in the NFL. They've scored 25 points in 6 straight games. That's the longest active streak. So offensively, they're humming, they're gelling, the running game, the offensive line. I mean, everything's clicking right now. Defensively, they've been good at run defense, taking the ball away. That unit is number 1 in the NFL this year with takeaways at 20. They lead the NFL in fumble recoveries, but anything resembling pass defense has to be looked at, right? I mean, they're giving up about 70% completion percentage to quarterbacks, and it's not just the elite guys, right? I mean, it's the Josh Johnsons of the world who came in, off the practice squad, elevated day of the game on Thursday last week. The quarterback for the Jets threw for over 300 yards against the Colts. So they've got to get that figured out. That can't be what ultimately, dooms this team. They're playing so well in all 3 phases. But if you look at that aspect of the defense, they've got to get that figured out. Just because, you're going to play some really good offenses the rest of the way here. You brought up Buffalo next week. You're playing the Raiders and Derek Carr. You're going to be playing Tom Brady.
Patriots. Yeah,
the Patriots. They've got something going on with their young quarterback there. So defensively, they got to get that shored up. Otherwise, that just can't be the part of their team that dooms them and keeps them out of the playoffs.
I think when you look at this Jacksonville game specifically, Matt, you kind of go through and look at the Colts wins, and these are the games that they've beaten up on teams, right? They like the bottom feeders, the Dolphins, the Texans, some of these other teams that they beat in the Jets recently. They've won all those games by double digits. So I think heading into this game, the reason for some optimism, even though Jacksonville's coming off a big win, is the fact that the Colts aren't really overlooking these teams. I mean, the NFL is a different animal each week, but I think in these type of games, the Colts have answered the bell instead of falling asleep looking at the score sheet and the record. Instead of saying we're playing the 2-6 Jacksonville team this week, we can kind of lighten up. This is when the Colts have really played really well.
No, it's a really good observation by you, and I think that's what the strength of this regime is. They win the games they're supposed to win, and not every team can say that. They do win these types of games. They do take advantage of the Jets. They do take advantage of the Texans and the Jaguars, and last year beating the Jets and the Vikings in week 2. They are winning the games they're supposed to win, and I think that's a credit to Frank Reich in that they don't overlook anybody. Now, the other side of the coin is they're not winning games they're not supposed to win. They're not beating the teams that are solidly in the playoffs, right? I mean, if you look at it from a big picture standpoint, going back to last season, and we've talked about this on this show, the Colts are 0 for their last 8 against teams that made the playoffs in 2020, including 0-5 so far this season. So it is a catch-22. They're taking advantage of the schedule. They're winning the games they're supposed to, but obviously the fan base is clamoring for more. They want this team to kind of take that next step. They're going to get both opportunities in these next couple of games. Win a game you're supposed to against Jacksonville, and then we'll see what they can do against the big boys, in quotes, on the road against Buffalo. Quite frankly, you should have won that game last year in the playoffs on the road against Buffalo. It's another chance to kind of prove, what kind of team this is and how viable they are to make the playoffs in 2020. We're going to get two really good barometers of these next 2 games.
And I have a kind of a big picture question, I guess, about Carson Wentz. And because I bring this up because it's to me, it's a little frustrating, right? It seems like when Carson Wentz is at his worst is when he gets noticed. And I'm talking about social media, news, ESPN, Sports Center, all that stuff. But you look at the statistics, 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's completing over 64% of his passes this season. By and large, he's played really well. But it seems to me that it's the critical mistakes that get highlighted and why he's not an elite quarterback. And I'm not putting him up in that same category of players like Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady or, guys of that nature. But why do you think that Carson Wentz maybe doesn't get, and I understand, again, he's not an elite level quarterback, but he plays really well with this team. He's played hurt. He's played really tough. Why is he not maybe getting some of the respect that other players at that position get? Is it as simple as the Colts are 4-5?
I think that has something to do with it. I think that, if you're just looking, for me to think like a fan, I think some of the fans say he's putting up good numbers, which he is. He's playing fantastic. He's leading this team. He's, great inside the huddle. He's great for the locker room. He's an unbelievable leader. But if you're just asking me to kind of think outside the box as a fan, I think some of the naysayers that still are critical of Carson point to, the fourth quarter and overtime against Tennessee in a game where the Colts, we all knew what that game meant in terms of the standings and the ramifications if you lost that game. And again, the naysayers will say, okay, he threw an interception with, 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. He threw an interception with under 4 minutes to go in overtime to set up the game-winning field goal for the Titans. And he's also just such a competitor and had such a down season last year in 2020. And I think some of the people outside looking in that don't know the complete details and the ins and outs of how that fallout went down between he and the Eagles point to, he shared some of the blame, which he did. I'm sure that, that there's 2 sides to every story. And so if you look at Carson's role and his exodus out of Philadelphia, that definitely played a part of it. And, he had a bad 2020 season. He's revitalized himself to a degree in half the season here in Indianapolis. But I think the naysayers, the fuel for their fire, so to speak, is to point in big moments in big games, the turnovers and some of that competitive fire that gets him into trouble a little bit, where he's trying to make a play every single time he's got the ball, i.e. that left-handed throw, in the end zone where he's being sacked. And I think it's such a catch-22, right? It's such a double-edged sword. You want your guy to, give you max effort on every single play. You want your quarterback to always have that belief that just give me the ball and I'll take us down the field. I'll make us a play. But at the same time, you got to be smart. You got to know when to push it. You got to know when to not. You got to know when to take a sack and punt, things like that, not turn the ball over. So he's going to be, I think every quarterback deals with that. I think he's going to be dealing with that the rest of the season and quite frankly, the rest of his career. But it's sort of like Andrew Luck. What made him great was his competitive drive, but it also got him into trouble a little bit when he was trying to extend plays instead of just throwing the ball away or living to play second or third down or whatever the case was with those 2 guys in mind.
Injury-wise, Matt, where are the Colts right now on offense and defense? This is the time of year where a lot of teams get beaten up. We've seen Carson Wentz, he's battled through injuries all year. So for one thing, you got to take your hat off to him. All the grief he's taken, which is a ton of grief from a lot of different people from the beginning of the season, out there hobbling on, 2 ankles and having a pretty damn good year, if you want to be honest about it. statistically. But where are the Colts injury-wise right now?
Yeah, they're pretty good. I mean, all things considered, through 9 games and, what they've had to deal with at points this season, they've just been a mash unit. But compared to that, they're really in good shape. TJ Carey has a chance to play this week for the first time since week 3. He's been designated to return off of injured reserve. That would be big for the Colts secondary. Xavier Rhodes is still banged up a little bit. He's got a calf. We'll see if he can play coming up on Sunday. That would be big. T.Y. Hilton's trending in the right direction of playing on Sunday against the Jaguars. He's still in the late stages of the concussion protocol. He practiced on a limited basis yesterday. He had that red non-contact jersey on. And then Braden Smith has an elbow injury, and it's just been, such a hellish season for Braden as far as injuries go. He's had a foot. He's had, I believe, a thumb injury that he had surgery on, and then he left the game early last Thursday with an elbow. But I think, Frank Reich said the other day that he's optimistic that Braden will be able to play right tackle. So I think, again, knocking on wood, the Colts are in good shape injury-wise going into this game, and they're going to need to stay healthy, obviously, in these last 8 games to kind of make a run and push, for a significant, get some significant momentum heading into the playoffs, hopefully, after the rocky start. And I think a lot of that rocky start, starting 0-3 and 1-4, had a lot to do with just, your best players just weren't available.
And that's probably going to end up haunting them. We'll see, but it be the thing that it just ends up haunting them at the end of the season. But and I mentioned Carson Wentz, and I'm not a fan, but he's now looking at the birth of a child that he's already said, hey, no matter what, I'm going to be there for the team. Man, that's a lot. He's given up whatever. So I think that he's bought his ticket for no more grief for the year, unless he just, plays like dog poo. He says he's got his ticket.
Man, you're a wordsmith, aren't you? Man, you got a way with words, don't you, Jim?
Trying to keep it clean, man. It's a family show. So, but he does. He's got his get out of jail free card in my mind. I'm like, dude, he's done what he needs to do.
Well, he's been such a great teammate, and like you said, he's done everything you're supposed to do to acclimate to a new system, to a new team, and to kind of start fresh. Start the second chapter of his career. Off the field, on the field, he's done everything that any harsh critic would want to see him do. But again, you've got 8 games left, basically half the season, and we'll see what he can do if he can continue to play at this high level. I think that he can. I think that he will. But the biggest test for the Colts will be that you have 8 games left. You can probably afford to lose 1 or 2 tops. And if you do make the playoffs, inevitably it'll mean that you've beaten some teams that are going to make the postseason as well, like Buffalo, the Bucks, the Raiders, just to name a few.
Raiders!
You got to win these types of games.
Yeah, I always have to say that whenever I hear the Raiders. I got to do my Chris Berman impersonation. The Raiders! The end of the season, there are some really interesting games. You've already mentioned them for fans, and we are almost out of time. But the Patriots coming to town, Tom Brady coming to town, just some great atmospheres that the Colts will be in. How are you doing? How's the youngster? We haven't talked to you about you in a long time.
Well, like I said, I'm battling these sinuses and these allergies that keep flaring up on me because of the change in weather. So it's either my voice or it's the congestion. So like for the last 3 weeks, I've just been battling something, internally. So I'm looking to kind of turn the corner as far as that goes. But hey, life is good, man. We're in the throng of the season. It's like Groundhog's Week. It's like you play a game and you just turn the page and get ready for the next game. So it's a lot of fun, and family's doing good. I appreciate you asking. Little man's he's walking and talking and getting into everything like he's full toddler mode. So life is good, brother.
Is he like 1.5, 2? Where
he's
are
one,
we?
Yeah, he's 1.5 now. Yep.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Awesome, man. That's just crossed. It's always business, man. But we need to talk about how's Matt. We got to get the health check. Always got to get the health
That's
check.
right. That's right.
The Hoosiers, I won't bore you with that stuff, but bad season for Indiana on the football field. They've got 3 games left to try to salvage something out of that. But we'll see how that goes. The only thing I'll ask you, what do you think the chances that there are not changes made on the Indiana staff?
Oh boy. Well, I'm not there every day. You guys are closer to it than I am, but just looking from afar, I mean, it's just it's one of those things where, offensively, I know they've dealt with injuries. You're down to your third different quarterback, and you always want to play to your quarterback's strength. So it's tough to kind of game plan on the fly and, systematically change what you do to fit, whoever's at quarterback. So I do give them a little bit of a pass, but just watching the games on television, it just doesn't appear that there's a whole lot of chemistry. There's a whole lot of cohesion going on that side of the ball. And if you just, quite frankly, if you can't score in the Big Ten, the defense can only be put in so many positions and they can only hold on for so long. And I give that unit a lot of credit against Michigan. I watched most of that game until about halfway through the fourth quarter, and I thought they battled their tails off. But just offensively, when you're going 3 and out and you're putting the defense in bad situations with field position, you can only hold on for so long. So it's one of those things. I'm not there every day. I certainly can't call for changes. I'm not in that position. I am a fan, but that would be out of character for me. That would be out of left field for me to demand change because I'm just not close to it. But I do see on television that there's just, it's an uphill battle for that offense. There's no doubt about that.
Next week, I'm going to ask you about Michael McFadden and his chances at the next level. It's been fun watching him this year, man. Oh, he's a beast.
He is, and he plays his guts out, and he's probably my favorite IU player of this generation just because of how hard he plays, what he means to that defense. We all saw that in that Cincinnati game. I firmly believe the Colts, or the Indiana, I should say, I think IU wins that game if he stays in, the remainder of that contest on defense. That's how well they are playing on that side of the ball in that game. But it'd be fun to see him come back in a COVID year and have that extra year of eligibility. He's got to do right by him, but as a fan, you want to be selfish and have him part of that defense next season.
Matt Taylor, the voice of the Indianapolis Colts. I cannot thank you enough, brother. Appreciate you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your week, a great weekend, and a great game on Sunday.
I appreciate you guys. Be well. Thank you.
Good bet. Matt Taylor joining us. We got lots more coming back. How about a 105-year-old lady running a 100-yard dash? Set a new record, new age group, but you find that video. It's just we'll talk about it when we come back. More on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Hey, we all need insurance. Man, I wish you could play Southern Man after you that one time. I wish we could hear it. Southern! Or I wish we could get someone to record Southern Stone and rewrite the words there.
I've got the photo you sent me, and I've also got the video ready.
We'll do that as soon as we come back to get it out of the way. No, we've got Matt is
Kyle's supposed to be here. He'd probably enjoy the old woman. Just that could be how you introduce him to the show today.
Actually, he would enjoy this. I wish that I had the whole video for him to see for context, but I will have to explain it to him. So and everyone that's listening, then is not watching. So, but those of you who can hear me now, you'll be able to. Well, no, you won't be able to see it either because we're starting like 2 minutes in. Even though there's a video of this woman. They show her running the race, but I'm like, when they're showing her walk up to it or walking around before, and I'm like, she's getting around pretty damn well. It was amazing. Kyle, I'm talking about I've got this one quick video I'm showing right when we come back. Is 105-year-old woman ran the 100-yard dash and set a new whatever. But I watched, she's walking around. She's looking like a somebody that's 20, 25 years younger than her, getting around so well, walking around. And she actually does run. It's a slow pace. It takes her a minute to run, but she ran the whole damn way. And I'm like, dude, I know people right now that can't do that are probably in their 60s. It was just amazing. How are you doing, brother?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Cannot complain. How have you been? How's you got deep into high school football, the playoffs, but I was talking about complaining how busy this week has been for me. It's like the worst week of the year. You had the start of college basketball, so we'll have 2 college basketball games this week and 1 college football game to cover. That means that's about 6 press conferences added in there. 2 post-game shows, basketball post-game shows, 2 coaches shows, and 5 radio shows. And I'm like, yeah, that's a little more than I carry the brunt on.
All right,
yeah, that's a lot. That's it's fun to see college basketball back on TV again. That's
I'm telling you.
It's
Honda Passport, also 0% APR financing over 48 months and $0 down. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sillersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Thursday. Man, it's an action-packed lineup today. Dustin Schutte with me as always from Saturday Tradition, and right now joined by Kyle Neddenriep. He's the man when it comes to Indiana high school sports for the Indianapolis Star. And I was complaining about my busy season. Well, I can never. This is probably one day I can never complain when this guy comes on, because there's nobody, and I mean no one, that has to do more, cover more, know more, go more places than Kyle Neddenriep with all those high. I don't know how you do it, and I'm serious as hell when I say that, folks. I know what he has to cover, and I'm like, I don't know how you do it. I really don't.
Well, it's fun. We got a lot going on for sure. Especially, November's always just the football basketball crossover is
brutal.
You always know it's going to be a grind. I got a lot of basketball preview stuff to get done, and then trying to fit in, trying to do some football stories that you're kind of hoping to get to by the end of the year, but then you run out of time, and then the normal stuff we have week to week of obviously getting out to cover stuff. So really it's just you kind of know it, though. It's always, I've been doing this for a long time, so you kind of know from now until Thanksgiving weekend it's going to be pretty brutal, but it's good. I mean, people are reading it. You can tell by the metrics right now that people are reading it, and that's always a good thing. So but yeah, I've got more help on our staff now than I have in the past, so that's a good thing too.
One thing that you don't have to worry about covering is this race. There was a race. I don't know if this was yesterday when it was, but anyway, there was a 105-year-old woman that I happened to see this, that ran in this 100-meter race, which I watched the video and I was like, you got to be kidding me. She's getting around like she's 70, which that doesn't sound like normally that's a great thing, but she's just bouncing around. I'm like, she's 105. Think about that. That's freaking crazy. But instead, we're not going to watch it because most people are listening. But here, right after the race, they interviewed her. So let's hear what she had to say.
Julie, how did it feel?
Wonderful. I'm so happy.
There was concern before the race about the lines on the track and your inability to see. Did that bother you? Were you worried?
A little bothered me. It was confusing. If they'd been brighter, painted brighter.
The lines, they were talking about the lines on the track. She said, well, the lines were a little confusing. She couldn't see them. But she did an unbelievable job. I mean, go find that. It's great. Just a cool thing. Just one of those funny things. High school football is in the regional round. I don't know, upsets. What were the upsets last week? I know down in this area, you had Bloomington South beating Bloomington North. I went to that game, watched a good portion of it. And then New Albany, after the season they've had, they get blown out at the start of the season by Bloomington South, who they will be playing at home for the regional championship. They get beaten by North, I think, as well. So New Albany's had an odd season, but you got New Albany and South playing at New Albany for this regional championship.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Normally, we're covering mostly our teams here, but it's been, I think probably according to script as far as the 6A goes for the most part. Brownsburg Ben Davis is the big game this week in 6A, and then you got Lawrence North and Omar Cooper had a great. I covered their game against Lawrence Central on Friday. Had an amazing catch right before halftime, turned and took it into the end zone. And then had another big catch late in the game to kind of ice the game. So, but for them to beat Center Grove, they're going to have to try to get the ball to him as much as they can, and even then, it's going to be a total uphill climb. Center Grove is just so dominant, so good. We've talked about them all year, but really, I'm curious. Brownsburg, Ben Davis, the winner of that game, I think may have a chance to beat not beat Center Grove, but maybe give them a game. Ben Davis is mostly a passing team, have four really good receivers, and then Brownsburg likes to run the ball and try to control it against you. So I don't know, if how that will, if they would be able to do that against Center Grove, but that seems like a good plan to keep the ball out of their hands as much as possible, obviously. But anybody at this point, any of those three teams, Lawrence North, Ben Davis, or Brownsburg, it would be an upset to knock off Center Grove. But if you're still playing this late in the year, obviously you're here for a reason. But yeah, I don't think there's been a few upsets here and there. We had 3 state champions from last year go by the wayside last week, but I don't think any of them were necessarily a surprise. Schutte losing to Roncalli, Covenant Christian lost to Lutheran, and then Western Boone, which had to move up to 3A, lost to Brebeuf. So, and Schutte had to move up to 4A. For success factor as well. And they lost to Roncalli. So, there'll be some new champions in those classes, but we already knew that in two of those classes. So, not a huge surprise there. But, I'd say, Cathedral, Roncalli, Center Grove, we thought all 3 of those all year, pretty solid favorites. I think you still probably feel that way going into the regional round.
Then you drop down to 4A. Who's the dog in that race this year?
Well, Roncalli is they're in 4A, and they're playing Mount Vernon this week. And Mount Vernon's had they did beat Roncalli 2 years ago in the regional, and then last year Roncalli beat them. But Mount Vernon has several players from that team who are still around, including their quarterback Slunaker, who's thrown for 76 touchdowns in his career. So obviously they've got an offense. They're averaging more than 50 points a game. They don't play the schedule Roncalli does, though, and I think it'll be tough for them to stop Roncalli. But that should be one of the better games on Friday night, and a team that'll at least have a little bit of confidence going against a Roncalli team that their offensive line's about as big as any Big Ten team. So that's where they can really kind of wear you down is just keep running the ball and shoving it down your throat.
In those top 2 classes, the 6A and the 4A, I know Center Grove has been looked at as the Patriots for most of the years, kind of, when they're on their rises, no one's really going to get to them. But you mentioned Brownsburg, or who are they playing? Brownsburg or Ben Davis. Ben Davis, they've had a rough year at 6-5, but Brownsburg pretty tough. Are they a team that you think could possibly compete with Center Grove?
Yeah, I mean it's to an extent. I'd say Brownsburg has got a running game. I would say that you would at least feel somewhat confident that you could run the ball on them. I think against Center Grove, you've really got to try to hit a few big plays. And actually, Ben Davis early in the season, they actually hung with Center Grove into the third quarter. And I'm not sure, maybe that's the better matchup is for a potential upset is Ben Davis. They have Juwan Swanson at quarterback, and then Donnell Mason, who's got almost 1,000 yards receiving. And then Dylan Moore, who's a Western Michigan recruit, who he plays offense and defense, but also a really dangerous receiver for him. So, that may be if you can hit some big plays in the passing game, Brownsburg's more of a running team that will throw it efficiently. So those 2 teams are both, I think, dangerous. I think Lawrence North, I covered the first game. They played Center Grove, and they just could not stop Center Grove. I think they'll play better on Friday. Their defense is pretty veteran group. I think we're disappointed with how they played last time they played them. And, Lawrence North they didn't get the ball in Cooper's hands enough in that game. They're going to have to do that more to have any kind of chance, whether it's reverses or bubble screens or, throwing it deep once in a while to Cooper. They've got to find a way to get him free occasionally to have any type of shot. And he'll make plays. If you can put the ball close to him, he's going to be able to come down with it. But, those three teams are all, I would say have a fighting chance. They're all talented enough to hang in a game, and probably more so Ben Davis and Brownsburg as a total teams. But then you have Cooper and some of those guys for Lawrence North who maybe not as deep of a team, but obviously have a lot of talent to get to this point. And then I think on the north side of that bracket with Westfield and Merrillville, I think those two teams probably will meet next week in the semi-state. And, maybe the winner of that game, Westfield's at least been there last year. Merrillville's got a lot of Division I talent. It's hard to tell how good that they are necessarily. They haven't played any teams from around here. They used to do that 10, 12, 15 years ago. Merrillville would play some games down here, but haven't done that this year. But, I think they're a team that's kind of been lurking out there all year that you wonder maybe just how good they really are.
In years past, man, New Pal against Cathedral would be the matchup to see probably. But New Pal off just a little bit. 8-3 this year is not kind of what they've normally been. Cathedral, of course, been the toast of the class in 5A at 11-1.
Yeah, New Pal, they're kind of building back to they lost in the sectional last year to Whiteland, and now kind of building back to maybe not to what they were in 2019. Last time these teams played, I covered that game, it was 2 years ago in this round, and it was when New Pal had Charlie Spiegel and just obliterated Cathedral late in the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter, Cathedral led that game 10-7. Then it turned out to be 35-10 New Pal. Charlie Spiegel just kind of took that game over, ran all over Cathedral late in that game. But obviously they don't have Charlie Spiegel anymore, and they're going to be, just physically, I think Cathedral's just better. They're just a better team, better, athletes right now than New Pal is. So, that'll be a tough game for New Pal, I think. But, they're obviously a very solid program, and I think probably they will be even better next year than they are this season.
And Charlie Spiegel's a name I thought we would see this year for Indiana, especially after they had all of the departures and issues at running back, and just never did see him, because I know I've heard comments from coaches like nobody wants to tackle Charlie Spiegel in practice. I've been very surprised with the 4-game redshirt rule. We haven't seen him already by now, but I'm sure there's a reason, but that's been a surprise for me.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I remember talking about this when he was going through the recruiting process, and it's like if this was, however many years ago when a fullback was still a big part of college football, he's a prototype, fullback, but just not a lot of teams have that type of offense anymore, or that doesn't exist as much as it used to. He's not really what you would say is like an H-back, or a guy he's not probably tall enough to play tight end or something like that. So, I don't know. I mean, he's obviously
short yardage, baby, short yardage.
Yeah, he's a football player. I mean, he's so hard to tackle. He's just like a tree trunk, as strong as he is. But
that's why I'm surprised that they're under they've only got 3 games left, so he could have played in last game or a couple games before. But I'm just surprised that they have not used him at all when they've had so many, issues at running back. You had 2 guys transfer out. Steve McCarr get hurt. They're using walk-ons. And I'm sure I guess maybe guys in front of him, but again, I'm just surprised you haven't seen him hit the field with that 4-game redshirt rule.
Yeah, it's hard to know. You're not at practice, so you don't know what it looks like exactly. But it's he's obviously. I thought maybe, I knew it was would be hard for him to get on the field at IU. I thought maybe going to a service academy would be something he would look at, and he had some offers to go. Army and Air Force, and had some mid-major type of looks too. But I think he's a program guy, and I think that's what he knew going into that. And I don't know if he, I don't think he had thoughts of being the number 1 running back or things like that. But he's he's obviously helping them. You see his name pop up as the, practice, stuff he doesn't practice and stuff like that. So obviously he's making some kind of impact there.
Anything else popping up that you've got so much stuff out? What do the people need to look for at the Indianapolis Star by you?
Well, we posted our starting our basketball stuff, our top 25 prospects for 2022 class came out today, and we'll have more of those classes along the way here. And then, the younger classes, and then obviously a lot of our basketball coverage will be coming here in the next week. Probably about a week to 10 days. And then all of our football coverage, obviously, too, with the regionals coming up on Friday. I'll be at Brownsburg, Ben Davis. That game's at Ben Davis. And then we'll have coverage from all over the place, too, from other games. But yeah, so lots of stuff and pretty much something new every day, pretty much.
Well, we'll be talking more about the basketball. We'll talk about that next week because I'm sure there's plenty of IU targets on there as well as from others around the state. But man, I cannot thank you enough, brother. Rest up, because I know I know how hard it's going to be for you for the next 3 weeks. So enjoy it. Get the sneakers on.
Absolutely. Hey, appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Cal Neddenriep from the Indianapolis Star, Indy Star, I should say, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat as he does each week. They go by the Indy Star. It's once you've shortened it, of course, it's the official name is Indianapolis, but no one really says it anymore. Which it's fine with me, but the masthead says Indianapolis. But regardless, appreciate it. Be a subscriber. I still prefer to read the newspaper, to hold it in my hand and read the newspaper. I still like doing that, which I don't get to do that. I try to do it every day. I have to leave to go do that, of course, because I'm on the internet all over the place before then. But I miss that, man. I miss sitting there and going through that and not knowing until the next day.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you miss that? We got to take a break because we're right up on it, and we'll be back with tons more on Sports Beat. Let's see, Chris Denari's yet to join us, so it's got that treat coming up yet, and plenty more. Some IU basketball stuff we'll get on as well. Back with more, brought to you by the great folks at Reynolds Family Dentistry. If you live down in the Sellersburg area in southern Indiana, go see our good friends, Dr. J. He'll give you that championship smile, I promise you. And the IU people, don't forget. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
If you're in the market for...
I talked with Alec, by the way, and he's cool with switching my time for when that article's done. I can get your reel done.
What?
I texted you. You asked me about getting the reel done, and I said I need to talk with Alec because I had to write for him. He said it's cool. I can move that so I can work on your reel.
What are you writing?
3 keys. I do it every week.
I did not know that.
I've told you this before like 3 times.
And guess what?
I'll tell you again.
Maybe not. This one may have sunk in.
It gets harder and harder to write them because they don't win.
Well, you could be comical. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that's what I was telling Dustin last night.
But here's something, though. These next 2 games, it should be easier because they actually have a chance to win these 2 games.
Really? I mean, if they lose, Dustin, I kind of agree with them.
These are the 2 most winnable games they've had since
I agree with that fact. But if they lose to Rutgers, I don't think they win another game.
If they lose to Rutgers,
they're not winning another game if they lose to Rutgers.
If they lose to Rutgers,
Rutgers gets the S back in Rutgers. People call them Rutger.
I don't ever do that. That is ridiculous. If they lose to Rutgers, I'm going to ask Dustin Schutte, will there be changes before the end of the season?
No.
I don't think so either. But
go ahead and get that out of the way, I guess.
Is Indiana going to fall behind on the recruiting deal because of that? That's why these teams say they're doing this, is to get in front of that
I'll tell you what, you may see some decommitments if they lose this weekend. That's something I wouldn't be surprised at.
You're going to see decommitments when they change the staff anyway.
Well, that's true. Maybe not many. When Tom Allen changed his staff before, he didn't lose that many guys.
Yeah, but they weren't 2-10.
Yeah.
Well, they're not 2-10 yet.
Right there.
They're not 2-10 yet, though.
Well, it's just a matter of time.
I mean, that has got to be. This is potentially
the worst since the 1-11 Kevin Wilson season.
No, I'm talking about what I'm trying to think of. What college football team has had this much of a
reverse from the previous year?
Reverse of what was expected, what was thought.
All right, hold on. We got 5 seconds.
Northwest 2018-19.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. Don't forget, if you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, our good friend Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Realty, Indie Home Pros. Her 2 decades of experience could be the difference in you getting the home you want. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndieHomePros.com. My bad. Welcome in the great Chris Denari. How are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Quick turnaround, getting ready for tonight's game.
I'm telling you, I know that.
I'm here in my home office, so I didn't have to get into Salt Lake City at 2 a.m. or whatever that was. So, another tough one last night for the Pacers. 3-point game. They've played half of their games. 6 of the 12 have been decided by 4 points or less. They have an overtime win in there. They have an overtime loss. So that was a tough one last night.
I guess the positive part of that is you looked at, well, there's positives there, and so we're close, and just you got to get on the other side of that. It's better than I guess getting blown out and feeling that you're not quite there. And they've dealt with injuries to get to that point too. So it's kind of they've kind of navigated this. And you mentioned having back-to-back games, and then they play again on Saturday. Man, normally they got a little more space in there, but man, they're kind of packing them in right now.
Yeah, early in the year they tend to pack them in, and in fact, after the win in Sacramento on Sunday, I say we because from a broadcast standpoint, it's the same. It was the first time we had 2 days off between games all year, and that picks up again. So looking at the schedule, starting tonight in Utah, play every other day with back-to-backs thrown in all the way until Friday, December 3rd. And then they don't play again until Monday, December the 6th. So that's a span of almost 15 games where you're playing either every other day and with a back-to-back thrown in. But, what was disappointing last night is to learn a few hours before the game that Karis LeVert, just his back had acted up a little bit. And so they held him out. Malcolm Brogdon was back, and he was terrific, especially in the fourth quarter to keep the Pacers close. He's leading the NBA in fourth quarter scoring at about 9 points per game, and he was really good last night. The disappointing thing was you weren't, and Dustin, as a Pacers fan, you weren't able to take advantage of a Denver team without the reigning MVP. Nikola Jokic did not play. He was suspended for the game based on what happened in their win against Miami on Monday. But oftentimes, how often do you see guys step up, right? And the Pacers have seen that this year. They lost a game in Washington when Bradley Beal didn't play. They lost a game in Charlotte when Terry Rozier didn't play. And last night, they had 2 young guys, Bones Highland out of VCU and Zeke Naji out of Arizona, a rookie and a second-year player that both had career highs. And they just played like, hey, it's the playground and we're going to go out and play. If we get beat tonight, so what? And that's how they played. And you got to give them a lot of credit. And so, disappointing loss. I guess the good news is less than 24 hours later tonight, you get another chance. But it's a really good Jazz team. They're one of the best teams in the NBA. So We all knew that the start of the season and this road trip would be difficult. We'll see what the Pacers can do tonight.
You know, the thing. Well, I was just going to say, the thing that always sticks out to me about these games, they always scare me. When you have a star player sitting out, I always feel like that gives somebody on the bench, a rookie, a second-year guy, a guy who may not get as much playing time. It gives him kind of the opportunity to step up in a big way. And I feel like it just tends to happen. Those games scare me more than anything. I've seen it from Pacers players. Edmund Sumner was a guy last year who I thought took advantage of that. O'Shea Brissett at times. I'm sure there were teams that were scratching their head like, we let O'Shea Brissett beat us? Like, what happening here? So, but one of the things I wanted to ask you about is the last two games. Maybe it extends even a little further, but TJ McConnell's scoring has stepped up. Has he been asked? He struggled shooting the ball, for his career, but also for the first portion of this season. Has he been asked to be a little bit more aggressive when driving to the basket and maybe taking more shots than trying to find guys?
Well, I think he's doing, the one positive from last year under Nate Bjorker and, for the Pacers offensively was TJ McConnell's game. He was last year, because he doesn't take many threes, last year he was top 15 in the league in field goal percentage because he loves that little shot in the lane. And you're right. He had struggled, I think, through the first, 6, 7, 8 games. But on this road trip, he's had these are the 3 best consecutive games he's ever had in his career. 19, 18, and 16, playing with a lot of confidence, shooting that little 5, 10 footer in the lane. I just think he creates so many opportunities for his teammates, but he has to be aggressive because they have to honor him. So yeah, he's doing a really nice job. You saw the pairing with he and Brogdon in the fourth quarter together. I thought that worked pretty well, not having LeVert out there. It was funny, Dustin, because this was a Denver team. This has been a high octane offense team in the past. Last year they averaged 115 a game. This year they're right around 100. They've been more of a defensive team, and they have not shot the three well, except for Will Barton. And last night Will Barton shot him well again. He's a kid that played at Memphis. He's been in the NBA for 10 years, and he's just a guy, as Quinn said, he can get you 30, and he got 30 last night. So they definitely had guys step up. I thought the Pacers had guys step up, but they played that entire fourth quarter from behind. And I think we all have watched, any type of game over the years. The longer you stay behind, it's just harder, to get the lead. And the Pacers had, I think, a couple possessions in the fourth quarter when they could have taken the lead. I think maybe the game changes a little bit, but they just weren't able to do it.
And the thing that I noticed too is down the stretch, I don't think the Pacers played well for a majority of that game. I think that's a fair assessment. But to me, this was almost some of the games we saw against the Wizards. The Pacers would hit some shots. They couldn't get that one stop that they needed. They got one down the stretch. They got a lucky break with the missed free throw there towards the end of the game and had a chance to tie it. But, to me, I still see defensive progress. This isn't a team that I'm afraid is going to give up 140 points on a given night. So I think there are still some growing pains going on with this team. But I think when you look at the whole picture, the defense is getting better. And I do feel like playing in so many close games, as you mentioned, 6 out of the 12 decided by 4 points or less. I think that bodes well for this team when you get Caris LeVert back at full strength. If TJ Warren's able to continue to improve and get back on the floor, I think that they're going to have the scoring at some point in the season to win these games. And I think the defense is playing well enough to, if you get Caris LeVert back healthy, if you get TJ Warren back healthy, they're going to rattle off. They could rattle off 6 or 7 straight at any given time.
Well, I think you're right. The defense is important. Rick Carlisle says you have to control what you can control. You can control effort. You can control defense. And now 4 of the last 6 opponents have been below 100 points. They did not like how they played defense last year. Nobody did. For many reasons, it cost a coach his job. And then early in the year, they gave up 123 in the opener and 135. That you're not going to win games doing that. Now they've lost some of these close games, giving up under 100. But I think once they get that offense going, and Rick Carlisle has said it's a process. Look, when you have a new coach and a new team, it's not an excuse. Sometimes it takes a while for guys to figure their roles out. But I have seen, as you said, Dustin, I've seen really good signs defensively. And I think that can carry over in a long way and create that win streak that you're talking about, especially when this team has an opportunity in December to get back home. I was looking at the schedule. They're in a stretch of 16 of 19 days on the road. So what happens is they play in Utah tonight. They've been on the road since last Thursday. Come home middle of the night tonight, play Saturday at home against Philly, and then Sunday get on a plane and go out east now for a week. That can be taxing. And so if we've talked about this first part of the schedule, if you can just survive it, if you can just manage it and get to the 1st of December, I'm not even going to say you're going to be a 500 team, but maybe 3-4 games under 500, then you can start rattling off some wins. I think that's going to be the most important thing for this team.
It's early on, the injuries they've had to fight through. It's kind of like the Colts we were talking about earlier, but the early on in the season, you don't want to get too far down in the hole, which is what happened to the Colts with an 0-3 start. But they've managed to get through these games thus far, kind of unscathed, speaking of that. But where are they health-wise as a team? We talked about Karis LeVert already, I know, but as far as going forward, how are they looking?
Well, I think the interesting thing tonight will be to see, can Karis LeVert go in the second out of a back-to-back? I think many of us thought that maybe he was going to sit one of these games because of coming back from the sore back. Many people thought it was a stress fracture back in training camp. So we'll just have to wait and see when the injury report comes out to see if Karis plays tonight. Isaiah Jackson is still out, but fortunately that's a week-to-week situation. But the real story is TJ Warren, and the news that has come out has been very positive, that his scans, he's out of the boot. His scans have shown a lot of progress with that stress fracture in his foot. And now we're looking at weeks when I think we were talking about months. There have been some national reports out there that he could be back as early as December. Rick Carlisle wanted to stress in a meeting with the media the other day, he goes, look, we don't want to put a timetable on this and put a lot of pressure on a guy to come back. But we do think he'll be back sooner rather than later. So that's something we will be following. If you look back at you look ahead, the Pacers still have 11 or 12 games in November. So if you could get him back at some point in December, you still have the bulk of your schedule left. The Pacers have played 12 games. Let's say they've played 25 to 30 when he comes back. He would still be available for you for 50 games of the season. And I think that would be huge for the Pacers.
How's the voice holding up? We're early on into the season, but they're giving you these back-to-back games, man. They shouldn't be doing that.
Oh, well, it's you get into a rhythm once the season starts. I will say that first week or so, you're like, man, I haven't done this for a while. But now, here I've already done, tonight will be my 15th game since October the 13th. That's half of a college basketball season in less than a month. So it's just a rhythm that you get into and feel good. And after I get off the interview here, I'll get to work and ready to go. It's another 9:00 start. We have an 8:30 pregame show tonight on Bally Sports, and then a 9:00 start from Salt Lake City.
However you can find it, find the pregame show. Make sure you watch it with Chris Denari. Man, I cannot thank you enough as always, brother.
All right. Thanks, guys.
The great Chris Denari joining us, the voice of the Indiana Pacers, brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Realty. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration or
oh, man.
Dustin, did you enjoy, well, I guess you probably didn't enjoy the result, but watching Kennesaw State and Iowa State?
He's already talked about that. He was bragging about that.
They didn't win, though.
That game was No, oh my God. Let me tell you, for the first 4 minutes, I don't think they made a trip up and down the falling down.
Iowa State?
That game had so many turnovers and so many fouls. It was ugly. But they found some shooters, which we have not had in a while. Oh, they played well defensively. I mean,
who's the head coach at Kennesaw State?
Amir Abdul-Rahim, who's the young. I don't know if he's younger or older, but Sharif Abdul-Rahim, his brother played in the NBA.
Oh, interesting.
I think he's from Atlanta or from the Atlanta area. Jim Mora, head coach at UConn.
Jim Mora?
The young Jim Mora, former UCLA head coach Jim Mora.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Holy
Good God.
I thought he was in TV. Why would the hell would you get out of TV to go to UConn?
Probably for the money.
What? There's no money at UConn.
They had a donor that paid them money to stay at the FBS level, so they got to have some sort of money.
Wow.
Man, coast to coast.
What's that?
Coast to coast.
Going from the west to the east.
What are you talking about?
Jim Mora from UCLA to UConn.
Oh. Not only that, you're going from Southern California to Connecticut.
Stores,
Connecticut.
Stamford, Connecticut.
Love that.
What does that stand for, Connecticut?
It's from The Office.
I missed that.
Oh God. Itch on
I missed that. I missed that episode.
It's whenever they think that that Scranton's going to be shut down.
Why do they say stand for Connecticut?
Because they're not getting shut down.
That's the name. That's where their branch is located.
Yeah.
Oh, the other branch.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington. This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Pick a bow, pick a bow, pick a bow, a little funky. Yeah, welcome back here on this Thursday, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I was out at Southern Stone Restaurant last night, home of the Indiana football and basketball coaches shows, and after the game with Todd Leary. We'll be back there tomorrow night after the game, of course. But last night during Tom Allen's coaches show, it was like it was planned, and it was totally not. It was someone asked a question. I think it was a fan, the write-in or call-in questions that Don Fisher was reading, and the question was about, have you talked to Coach Woodson? Yada yada, and he was saying that we he's busy, I'm busy, but we text for the games back and forth. He's our biggest fan, we're his biggest fan. Yeah, and then about that time, in walked Big Mike and a couple of former players. A fortunate fan got their photo taken with both Tom Allen and Mike Woodson, and then of course in the background there, happy Don Fisher with a big smile on his face, if you can see that. But and then Mike just sat down with the people that were with him, and they put some tables together. We see you. Did you think we lost you because we were?
I was just trying to distract everybody from the photo. I was trying to create some entertainment here.
Are we not doing that? But yeah, he just sat down. That's the thing. At his coaches shows that he does at Southern Stone, he comes in and he's talking to people, and he's approachable, and of course Tom Allen is too. But he's out and about. That was just a random. I don't know if he did it on purpose because the coaches show was going on. But boom, I mean, that's pretty cool for your your new head coach to walk in during the football coach's show to show the support and sit down. And it was a pretty cool moment. It was a real cool moment for that fan. That may be the only fan that has a picture of with Tom and Mike together right now. How about that?
There you go. You can get an autograph too. Making memories.
I guarantee you never know who's going to walk into Southern Stone. That's why you need to go there at the corner of Patterson and Rogers, home of the IU basketball and football coaches shows, and after the game with Todd Leary from Indiana Sports Beat. Indiana signs to get their 3 national letters of intent, and that's another thing. NIL and NLI. Really? We got to use the same 3 letters for those things? Boy, when that thing comes out now and you see NLI, I'm like, what? What about NIL? And it's so confusing. But Indiana officially signs. Oh, it is. And I didn't notice until there was a headline put up the other day that someone signs, and it was NIL. I'm like, that kid can't sign an NIL deal. He's in high school. And I'm like, what's going on? I hadn't read it yet, and I realized, oh no, it's NIL or NLI.
Yeah.
But Indiana officially welcomed its 2022 recruiting class as all Jalen Hood, Schifino, Caleb Banks, and CJ Gunn signed their national letters of intent on the first day of the early signing period. Indiana's 3-man class of 2022 ranks number 23 in the Rivals 150 team rankings, headlined by number 20 overall player in the class, Jalen Hood Schifino. CJ Gunn was previously committed to Indiana under the previous staff of Archie Miller, of course, but he confirmed he was staying with Mike Woodson as he took over. You can see more about that on thehoosier.com about all 3 of those. And Caleb Banks, of course, from down there in Fayetteville, Georgia. How far is Fayetteville, Georgia from you?
I could not tell. I don't know. I know Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Well,
in Georgia? No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't know where Fayetteville, Georgia. It's in Fayette County, if that helps you any.
It does not. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up. This is gonna be great radio here.
Yeah, it's
Fayetteville, Georgia.
We need the music for Jeopardy. But
there we go.
No. But the recruiting class is signed, so Indiana's got talent coming in next year, man.
South of Atlanta. I'm north of Atlanta, so
part of there's a big part of that Atlanta basketball area there where he is. So Dustin there you go. Yeah, exactly, Jennifer. Dustin with the photo bomb. I was like, what is he doing? It was so funny. Here's a good question. Tim asked, will there be a lineup change Friday night in the basketball game? I don't know. I doubt it.
Does it matter?
I don't think so, but I doubt it because that group played well together. I think they had the biggest plus minus as a group when they were on the floor. Why would you? Who are you going to take out? Xavier Johnson is obviously, you're kind of lead guy on the ball right now. Rob's mixing in there. I mean, he's kind of playing both off and with, but Parker Stewart, taking him out. He needs to shoot the ball more. You're not going to take Miller Kopp out. You're damn sure not taking Trace and Race out. So I don't see why you would see any kind of a lineup change. The only thing is, will you see a couple other players that didn't play? That aren't injured. If they're ready to go, will we see Anthony Leal or Christian Lander? That's kind of a more of a question. But this is not going to be, I don't know, this is just going to be an easy game. This is the team that just won on the road at Washington to start their season. So they're one of the teams that got an upset to start their season.
Well, Indiana
did that
themselves
on the road. Well, yeah, they did. But you wonder, you'll see how much they learned from that. Got a big lead and got big, fat, and happy. And
that seemed to be a problem under a previous regime too. So that's why I say we'll see what happens.
They didn't have a lot of 20-point leads under the previous regime, though.
No, but
I understand.
My point is that they didn't play well in the final 4 minutes of any basketball.
Well, but their biggest issue was shooting again and shooting from deep. And that's an issue that has been the same for the last few years. But I've talked to, there's many people that say, Todd Leary, of course, who comes on and says these guys are hitting these shots in practice. Even Race Thompson, who put up some threes, said he shoots pretty daggone well in practice. Well, they've got to learn to transfer that to game, and it's still early. And this team, it's way early, and this is a team of new faces. Look at all the new faces that are playing a lot of minutes. There's a lot of minutes going to guys that were not on this roster last year. Parker Stewart, being one of them, he's on the roster but didn't play. But Xavier Johnson and Miller Kopp, two right there, are starters. Parker Stewart is a starter. Hell, you got 3 of the 5 starters were not on this team last year. This county Parker Stewart was on the team but didn't play again. Or did I just say one didn't play? So right there, that's a lot of integration already. So it takes a while, man. Look at the teams that lost. Look at Michigan State. Wow, they played a really good team. They always seem to start slow.
They do. Yep.
But it's how you finish. So you got to go at least 5 games in, get a book of work to look at. You can't look at one game. First time back in the building, first time with people back in the building. That was kind of cool, at least.
Yeah, that was awesome. I love seeing that. I think that plays a role in some of these outcomes too, because there weren't many dominant performances in the Big Ten overall. So I think that having fans back in the building makes a difference, but I think that there's also maybe the butterflies last a little longer after not playing in front of anybody for a full season. So that makes a difference. That new players, new coaching staff, that makes a difference. It's interesting to see. It was just, you thought that Indiana was going to cruise, and then you kind of saw shades of what we saw a lot the last couple seasons set in, and you'd like to see that go away. But maybe Eastern Michigan's a good team. I don't know anything about them, to be quite honest, other than we prefer to call them the Fighting Emus instead of the Eagles.
Well, they were like a 290 team, I think, from KenPom last year. They were 6-12.
Oh, geez.
So, and they didn't. Indiana held them.
They had some guys that could shoot.
Well, not really. Indiana held them to under 30% shooting for the entirety of the game until that one dude got hot at the end, who jacked up 21 shots. He
hit them when they mattered.
Yeah. It did, but it only mattered because Indiana wasn't hitting the damn thing. And if Indiana had just been doing average at what they should have been doing, it still wouldn't have been a problem. They would not have been able to knock that entire lead out. And they did. But like I said, it's a learning lesson. It's what Coach Mike Whitson talks about. He's proud of his team. He's happy with them. Yeah, there's stuff they got to work on. And that's what you do, man. You play games. You look at the film. All right, here's where you screwed up. Hey, you can't do this. You got to stop doing this. And it's not going to be fixed after the second game. You're going to continue to make some mistakes. It takes a minute. And while you're actually playing live games, you can't simulate. I keep saying this over and over. You can't simulate game action in practice. Just can't. It's impossible to do. So you need the games. You need the live games under your belt. And I think it's going to take at least 5 games before you start to see what this team is starting to build towards. So we'll look more after that and see what it's like, I think.
Probably. It's probably not even going to be 5 games. It'll probably be more like 12. Once you get into December and January is when teams start. Look at Michigan State is a great example because they never, well, I shouldn't say never, but rarely do they play their best basketball in November. And a lot of teams national media, myself included, are like, boy, is Michigan State going to be any good? And every year it seems that they're in the top 4 of the Big Ten. I know that wasn't the case last year, but so you never know. It's probably going to take quite a while. But you can't write this team off after one game. You shouldn't. I don't know. I have a different opinion of Eastern Michigan than you. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I just thought that I don't know.
Well, they had some length. I'll tell you this. They had two guys
some,
that were taller than both Race and Trace. The guy was 6'10",
right.
and the other one was 7 foot.
Right. I'm just saying that they hit some tough shots. I thought that Indiana even defended on some of those possessions. They defended well. Obviously, some guys got open at times.
Superb early on. It was smothering.
So it'll be interesting to see where this team progresses. You know what the biggest thing is that they got the win. They're 1-0. That's all that matters at the end of the day. There are no style points.
Ohio State won on a last-second buzzer beater over Akron. And I said there are other teams that lost. Washington lost to was it Northern Illinois that's coming in here Friday? Virginia. I mentioned Virginia.
Yep.
Virginia lost to Navy, and I mentioned yesterday Armand Franklin, 2 of 11 overall and 1 of 7 from behind the arc. You know, his shooting was good last year. He didn't shoot worth a crap in his first game. Gonna happen. It's just early on and looking forward to it. Somebody mentioned earlier tonight there's a football game. My favorite team, UNC, plays Pitt. Well, yeah. Pitt has been pretty good this year, haven't they?
They have been.
Surprising a little bit. It's a little surprising.
I think it's surprising because Clemson is
what?
Because Clemson has been so bad this year. But Pitt lost. Who did Pitt lose to? I can't remember now. Who did they lose to? Well, they lost to a bad team, a MAC team, I think. One Bowling Green. But I mean, they're going to be in there's a good shot they're in the ACC championship game. I don't follow the ACC that closely, but North Carolina's been a serious disappointment.
The entire ACC, brother, I say this all the time. They're terrible. That conference is horrible in football, and I do not understand it because you have powerful P5 programs in that conference, some of which used to be juggernauts in college football, and you've got 2 teams that are in one of the best talent producing states in the country, Florida State and Miami, both who been dominant, but they're just getting out recruited in their own backyard now, and they have not been able to recapture the magic, which is surprising. And there's not a really good team, really good. I mean, how good is Pitt? They're the best team in the ACC, I'm assuming, right?
Yep. Yeah, they're 7-2. They're good.
Where would you rank? Where are they ranked?
They're in the 20s, I think. 24, maybe. I don't know.
What does that tell you? That the best team in the ACC with however many thousand teams that they have in that conference, your best team is ranked in the 20. You got one team that's ranked. That's embarrassing. I mean, that's just bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. They have
way, other than Clemson.
Well, you're forgetting about Wake Forest. Mighty Wake Forest is number 12.
Well, their number 12 is North Carolina's number 5 from last year. That is just so overinflated because they were beating nobodies and accomplishing nothing. And they were getting the obligatory, well, they won that game, so we must raise them up. No, Cincinnati is not the team that they're ranked. They are not at the level where they're ranked. Michigan State was never as good as what they were ranked. And I don't understand.
So then what? Okay. Hold on. We're going to have an argument here. Who would you rank in the top, who would you rank in the top 10?
There are teams that have lost more that I think are better just because they play better teams. I mean, you got teams in the SEC, you got teams. Who do I think is better than which team? Pick a team.
I mean, any of the ones that you're mentioning. Why would you? Well, okay, so you would base it strictly off of eye test as opposed to who deserves what? Is that what you're saying?
I was fortunate to see both of these teams play.
Yeah.
And I saw both of those teams play an inferior team that they should have lost to. really should have lost. Cincinnati should have lost, and Michigan State could have easily lost to an inferior team that had no offense, that was living on their defense. And I was like, wow, the fact that they were that close to losing, they're not that good. You want to go back to, I hate harping on because I'm over that. Daggone it. What,
McFadden ejection?
Yeah, that was a big turning point, but they still had their chances, but it was because they didn't have any offense. If they'd had an average offense, it's a win, and Cincinnati disappears from the love fest. They're still not, or I'll tell you this, they're not getting into I don't think they're getting into the playoffs, do you?
No, I don't think they're getting into the playoffs, but I think that they should.
Then why? Why aren't they getting in?
They aren't getting in because they don't get any respect.
Because they're not that good.
They beat a top 10 Notre Dame team.
Who was overrated?
Here's the thing. Let me point this out.
Bloated ACC schedule.
Okay, talk about this. Oregon is ranked number 3. Do you agree with that or no?
Well, they are, and they beat a good Ohio State team early. They caught them early, but they beat an Ohio State team, so you got to give them that credit. So I can't take that away.
They have a comparable win. Cincinnati
and they did it on the road, didn't they?
Well, yeah, Cincinnati beat Notre Dame on the road. Oregon beat
Ohio
State.
That is not comparable to beating Ohio State.
Time out here. How many bowl-eligible teams has Oregon beat?
I don't know. I haven't followed them.
0. How many bowl-eligible teams from the AAC has Cincinnati beat?
Wait a minute. How many bowl-eligible teams has Oregon beat?
From the Pac-12. The answer is 0.
Oh, from the Pac-12.
Is 0. Cincinnati has beaten 1 bowl-eligible team from the AAC. They'll have to beat SMU, probably, I don't know how the divisions work out, but probably Houston at some point. So why is Oregon number 3 and Cincinnati is number 5?
Because Oregon beat a legitimately good team, and they did it on the road.
What would indicate to you that Notre Dame is not a good team? Notre Dame, whoop. See, I got fired.
I think they're overrated because they play. They were not impressing me. They should have lost to Florida State.
They should have, but they didn't.
Lucky to lose that game. Oh my God. But they played in the weakest conference in the country, in all of college football. They played in the weakest conference there is. So there's no one in that conference do I give any love. Their best team now is Pittsburgh, and they're a 20th ranked team. So no, if you're in the ACC, you get no respect from me. 0.
Well, it's a good thing that they are independent then, number 1. Number 2 is that they beat Wisconsin. Member. They beat Wisconsin on a neutral field. They thumped Wisconsin on a neutral field. And they beat a 19th ranked Purdue team. So there's a couple quality wins. This is me poking holes in everything you said.
And I love it. And they caught Purdue early. Purdue was up and down early, and I think that Purdue's really they're kind of catching their groove right now. And this is we'll pick this up more when we come back, but it's the year that Jeff Brom kind of had to have. So, but yeah, we're having fun here, man. Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with more. Brought to you by our good friends at Bubba's 33 down here in Clarksville. If you're down in Southern Indiana, pizza, burgers, beer. Back with it after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration, that's so much fun. That's like the only day of the week. Sometimes with Kevin, I can do that.
Yeah, but Kevin gets mad at you.
No, he takes it personal. Kevin is
that's what it is. Yeah,
Kevin is so sensitive. He's just a sensitive.
Hey, he could be watching. He watches sometimes. I
love him. I love him. He's a great friend. That's why I can say that. He's sensitive. I know him personally. He's just a sensitive guy. Yeah, it's
I love how Dustin goes. Well, good thing they're independent.
Dustin knows it's all hot air. They're a quasi ACC member.
They are quasi. How many do they play I'm trying to figure that out.
And technically, last year they were in the ACC.
That's what I
they're
thought.
required to play 5, I believe.
I think you're right. They played Florida State, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia Tech. Yep. So you're right. 5.
Yeah,
Fun stuff.
They worked out that deal.
What a deal.
What a bargain. $5.99. You have penny?
Jim, you're on the side of the college football playoff committee. They look more at which teams are.
Would you rank Michigan ahead of Michigan State?
Man, don't say that to me. That makes me.
You
I
are,
hate the
though.
college football committee. And how about the college football committee? I think it was their second big presser they've had of the year. Do you know when they scheduled that?
Oh, during the middle of the Champions Classic.
It was at 9:30 on the opening night of college basketball.
They do that every year.
When Duke and Kentucky was tipping off. How moronic. You've got all this room all around that, and you're supposed to be this big. I'm like, and it was a presser for it to, I'm like, I would have, probably been on there if it had been at a time where everything else wasn't going on. That's just, that's like the NCAA. It's like releasing something at 5:00 on Friday.
I hate these shows more than anything in the world. I wish I didn't have to watch them.
He's not talking about ours, I hope.
No, he's talking about the committee shows.
Yeah,
all right, here we go.
I was reminding people he's not talking about
playoff ranking shows.
Yeah. Or on the station each weekday.
Oh,
if we're not on the station where you live, we should be at for Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Welcome back. Having fun. I didn't realize when you were talking about Jim Moore earlier going to UConn that was brand new hire.
Yeah, brand new information.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Why? Why would he do that, man? Dude, there is nothing at UConn. I know you said that they've got a donor that wanted just to keep them on that level, but I don't care. They're in, what are they in, the AAC?
No, I think they're independent now.
Correct. That's what I was chiming in to say.
Oh my God, that's even worse. You got no TV money to share, no bowl money to share. You've got nothing coming in. Who the hell wants to go to Stores, Connecticut to play football?
I was just going to say, do we have the rim shot, the but-untunch? Because I was going to say, does he know what trouble is in Stores?
Oh my gosh. Holy moly. John, you've got to start having the what's it called, a rim shot.
Yeah.
You have to put that in the sound bank there. Wow. Is that going to be your I hope you're writing an article about it.
Well, I will not be, but I'm sure somebody on our staff at the moment is, because he's did some good things at UCLA, did some bad things at UCLA. I'm surprised when a coach takes, like Mick Cronin, for example, was a guy from Cincinnati who had coached his entire career in the Midwest and I think even on the East Coast, to go to the West Coast. I mean, obviously they got to the Final Four last year, so it worked out.
But he went to UCLA. He went to a blue blood, man.
Right. But still, when I'm talking about recruiting.
And he's going to Southern California. Big dollars, lovely life. He's not going to Stores, stinking Connecticut and not making those big dollars, not having all the bright lights. I mean, I don't see, I guess, coaches are coaches and they just have that itch that they want to do that. But man, he had it made. He was in TV. It's like Urban Meyer. What a moron right now. You can really say, what an idiot. He's terrible at the NFL. He's got such a great legacy as a one of the most dominant collegiate coaches, and now he's going to end up like Bobby Petrino riding his motorcycle down in Arkansas.
Oh God, yeah,
with the neck brace and all the black eyes and all that stuff after he wrecked with his volleyball playing girlfriend on the back. Of course, it wasn't as bad as that, but yeah, I don't get it.
I think it's more about that competitive nature than anything. That's what it has to be. The Urban Meyer thing, he'll get a chance to restore his college legacy. He'll when he gets back to USC. He did
win a big ass game last week.
I still remember that he's going to get that job. What's that?
He won a big game last week.
He did, but they won 9-6, and they're still 2-6.
First of all, how the hell do you hold Buffalo to 6 points?
I didn't watch. Was everybody playing? Did they set their starters?
I don't know. Who knows? It's crazy, but yeah, we'll see. Lots this weekend in the Big Ten. As we get down towards the end of the season, get back over here. Make sure that is this week 10
in college football, week 11.
Yeah. Oh, I see. That's why you gotta catch these things, man. They always try to screw you up. But this up for me. I hate you. There it is. Taking slow, but now I got to switch back over to the Big Ten. Come on, it's terrible. Lots of games and some Thursday games tonight. Buffalo at Miami of Ohio, the Zips at Western Michigan, and Ohio at Eastern Michigan. So it's MAC night, baby. It's MAC night in college football.
Action.
What's that?
Maction. Raise the roof.
There you go. It's Maction. So that could be trying to think of a Monday Maction. They could play them on Mondays, maybe.
Monday Maction. There we go.
That would be something crazy. This has got to be. This is football. There are games. Wait a minute.
Are you looking at the wrong thing?
I have to be. Yeah, these are the wrong things. I'm on the wrong page. This game's pulling me up. But I was trying to, besides Indiana's game this week, and they play Rutgers. Speaking of Indiana, their best shot of winning, is it against Rutgers or is it against a depleted Minnesota team? I mean, Rutgers they've tried to battle in most of their games. They got killed by Ohio State, of course, but they were in some games.
Yeah, I think that this is the best. I think this is going to be the best chance because if you're going to move the ball, Minnesota's defense is playing really well. Even though they've had some struggles on the offensive side and they are on their 4th and 5th string running backs with Kai Thomas and Marquise Irving, I still think that Rutgers, this kind of slow pace, like they're not going to score a lot of points. They haven't scored more than 21 points in a Big Ten game yet. So this is a chance for Indiana to take advantage of a poor offensive opponent. You might, to me, this is going to sound stupid, but punting is incredibly important in this game because you have to win the field position battle. Wow. Isn't I just say that because it is incredibly important. They have to win field position or they have to create turnovers. That's how. Do you trust this? Do you trust this offense 75 yards at any point against any defense?
Well, first of all, we don't know who's playing quarterback for Indiana this week. That's something else.
I know who's playing quarterback.
Penix,
I mean, I don't really, but I can guess it's going to be Donovan McCulley.
From the way the questions have gone about a lot of questions about his trying to retain his redshirt year because he has exhausted his 4 games. So if he does play, there's a season lost. I get what they're doing. I think that is so old school thinking. Why the hell are you worried about a dude being here 4 freaking years from now when I think you need to be worrying about guys being here 1 year from now? That's the worry, and that's where the focus should be. Yeah. And that's I don't understand. Forget about 4 years from now. Not with the transfer portal and all that's going on. To hell with that. you got to play today, man. I know you have to plan for the future, but there are certain things you just got to step up.
Look, to me, this is what this boils down to for me. Michael Penix is not going to be your answer. Jack Tuttle probably. And you forget about the 4-game red shirt. If you trust your recruiting, if you believe that Josh Hoover is going to be your next guy, then you put the red shirt on him next season and create that 2-year gap so as to where you're going to have Donovan McCulley. You expect 3 to 4 years, and you're going to have Josh Hoover 3 to 4 years. To me, that's where this situation leads. If you trust your recruiting, if you think Josh Hoover can be your starting quarterback at some point, I'm not saying that they have to cut ties. Maybe in a new offense, under a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterbacks coach, maybe Michael Penix could get it figured out. But from what we've seen this season, neither one of those guys, like you have in today's college football, you have to have some mobility. Both of those guys, when they drop back, are statues. Donovan McCulley at least provides mobility and is able to get out of the pocket, throw on the run, pick up some extra yardage with his legs. Those other two guys can't do that. I'm not saying he can pick up 20 yards, but he can pick up 3 or 4 and keep them on schedule.
I think it depends on Jack Tuttle's foot injury, because we know nothing about it. I agree that Michael Penix is not the answer because we already had a dose enough of that and it didn't work. But Donovan McCulley is not throwing the ball. Indiana has not had a passing touchdown to a receiver since Idaho. So
how about this? We worked this out. We worked this math out the other day on the podcast. Indiana's only thrown a touchdown pass to a wide receiver in 1 game.
How crazy is that?
Exactly.
It's the nuttiest thing I've ever seen.
I also want to throw something out there that I mentioned after the podcast last night that I didn't get to put on it, but there's only 3 Power 5 teams that have not beaten another Power 5 team: Indiana, Vanderbilt, and Kansas.
And you just mentioned Vanderbilt is down there, but it's because, they're in the SEC and they're the brains of that operation. Kansas is potentially the worst program in Division I football. For a Power 5 school, I think that they may be the worst program. They're at the dead bottom. They have the worst coaching hires. They brought in a horrific Les Miles, who they're a mess. So for this team to be on par with that, there's after last year, that's just BS. It's total BS. So that's a different discussion because we're just talking about winning this game. They have to find out how to win this game. Donovan McCulley has not thrown the ball well either. I think that Nick Sheridan has to find a way to get the tight ends, the running backs involved, keep it simple, make it positive, quicker hitting passes, quit trying to, no more 5-step drops or 7-step drops. I don't know if they're doing 7, but get the ball out of your hand. It's got to be quick. You're not getting pass protection. Do you think that's going to change? No, it's not. So alter the offense, get these guys involved. Why? You've got some good tight ends. Throw the damn ball to them. 10 yards, throw a 10-yard out, throw whatever. I'm sure they could run routes. I mean, or am I just being popping off?
I don't expect any of it to look any different. The reason I say you stick with Donovan McCulley is because I think that he could use the reps. Even if they're not successful, just getting that experience, having that sort of experience is invaluable. So I don't know. I don't expect the offense to look any different, but I do think that you can dink and dunk Rutgers down the field more than you could these other teams that they've played. So that's why I think that they have a better chance for success. But Rutgers they've been more successful in these type of games against teams like Syracuse. They've been more successful against teams like Northwestern and Illinois. They've gotten wins in those games. So that's why I think when they play bad offenses, they find a way to win, and that's what I think they're going to do this week.
I don't want to forget, shout out to the veterans. Thanks, Glennie. Appreciate you. Yes, salute to the veterans. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, sorry about that. Is there any gamesmanship? Jack Tuttle. We don't know who's healthy.
No.
We don't know is Michael Penix healthy? Because it was a shoulder injury, and was it his throwing shoulder?
I don't remember.
Yeah, because they release so little information when it comes to injuries. And the foot, it had to, I'm thinking it must have broken for it to have been that bad.
Well, I'm sure there's some sort of gamesmanship here because Greg Schiano in his press conference on Monday did say we got to do the best we can because they're what they try to do with the three different quarterbacks is three very different things. So I'm sure that there is some sort of gamesmanship there and not revealing much information.
We have 1 minute left, John.
Yes, sir.
1 minute mark, man. This day always goes way too fast. As the bowl season comes around, it sucks that Indiana's not going to be in it because it really gives us more to talk about. But we did a overtime yesterday. Mike Dumas was on. It was awesome. Need to get back to doing that. But it's been an absolute blast, as always, with Dustin. This is just one of the funnest days, but also because of Matt Taylor from the voice of the Colts, Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star, and, of course, Chris Denari, the voice of the Indy Pacers. It's always fun to have Dustin. I can't tell you how much appreciate you, man, but most importantly, and John, the producer, but we appreciate you guys more than anything. Without you, there's no reason for us to be here. We're back again tomorrow, and then, of course, tomorrow night after the game, as Indiana is taking on Northern Illinois, so they'll have another shot on the hardwood, and we'll be talking about that. Lots of basketball tomorrow. For Dustin Schutte and John, the producer, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.